Hey there, it's Matt. How are we all doing, I wonder, huh? Because sometimes I wish I could talk to my subscribers. They're so few and far in between. I know one of them, a friend of mine. He actually moved into my group housing, so I currently live. It is pretty. It's a good trade off, It's like renting a room. Doesn't cost me anything. I'm work free right now. I kind of wish I was working. And I guess that is to say I've met one of my subscribers, but presumably I haven't met the rest. It makes me think, not working about what it would be like to actually hold a job. I'm the kind of guy that's grown so comfortable with doing what he wants to do all day. I mean, sometimes I'm productive. I'm productive at times. I'll write or I'll make music. So in that sense, maybe I am perhaps, especially when you consider the depressive element of my mind, when you account for it, maybe I am much more productive than some songwriters out there, simply for having the motivation and courage to actually create potent songwriting. And that is to say, I'm sorry that there were 3 songs that I posted to my channel. And all I really want to say about that is I'm sorry that they weren't good enough. And also I'm sorry for myself that I thought they were good enough. Then I posted as an extended play called A Resonant Harmony. But turns out the violin was kind of botched, not the best. Still hearing flaws in it to this day, even with an improved violin. But I figure in a week to... Oh, mom's calling. Let me just decline for now. I figure in a week to a few weeks, I'll be back online. It represented progressivity, experimentation. But most of all, it simply was an improvement. Even then, it was an improvement. I've just started really realizing how much the world doesn't fuck around. How much it will grab you by the tail if, the dangers of the world will chase you unless you make an example out of things, unless you better yourself and are a serviceable and productive member of this world. Granted, I could get away with not doing anything, but maybe in a big way I couldn't. I believe in karma, and I believe in the reciprocative element of how do I put it? It's like we're being watched by a grander force. It's like we're being watched by divine figures, and because of that, I really think it's important to not just be a lazy hack, but it's a bit more than that. Really, more than anything, it would rest on my consciousness. It would be a problem for me because, well, there was a point in time where I completely fell for the mental degradation, and I completely fell, therefore. But that time is no longer now. Now that I have some stability in my assets, now that I have some kind of health, it is no longer time to be lazy. It is time to be productive, right? But sometimes it's not that easy. It really saddens me how much I just sleep and sleep and sleep and sleep. So I've tried to lessen it on that front, and maybe if I'm not creating, then I'm checking out music I've once loved. There's a lot of that. I've been listening to Vampire Weekend, and that is an album filled with, in particular, it is what I've been checking out. It's the fourth album, Father of the Bride, I believe it is called. And I think there is this one song on there that is a bit of an epiphany for me. It is called How Long. And it is a simple song. It is adequate with the rest of the album in the sense that it fits its themes and concepts and sound. But what's interesting about that song is that it really resonates in just how enthralling and catchy it is. It lifts my mood. Not a lot of anything accomplishes that nowadays, so that's kind of a gift. It's made me think about what it means to give back to a community, because any form of artistry can inspire the listener, the participant, to such a degree that they'll experience some kind of change, and you hear how artists are so inspired by a piece of art that they'll go and change up some of their own work. Maybe that is called making an impact upon the world. Impacts that are felt across the world don't have to be negative. It can be a very beautiful thing. And maybe at the end of the day, I just was going through such an unfathomable time. A veritable struggle. A genuine struggle. And maybe I shouldn't blame myself too hard, because for some years, 2 years, let's say, I feel the expectation that I have in retrospect was that I was to be psychotic. It was too much of a stress. It was too much of a burden. It was too much for me to not be some kind of psychotic, But nowadays I'm recovering, even now, but I'm doing a hell of a lot better. A hell of a lot better. You could say I'm mostly changed. We all have. When someone says, I'm a changed person, it's usually to compensate for something I've noticed. So it's to compensate for having committed a grave error or a grave mistake. And then they'll say, I assure you I am a changed man. But what does it really mean to completely change? I wonder. So I'm sure it's happened, but what does it really mean to completely change? But then I think of my times in high school and how I was much less adept. Social, I was less adept. Personally, I was less comfortable. And overall, there was a lack of understanding of what truly made the human element valuable to me nowadays. What truly makes it, valuable nowadays. what makes it personable to and relatable to me. I didn't really understand that part of things before. I think the fact that, I I did everything because I saw other people doing it first, you know. I was a bit more than an adaptive creature. I was an adaptive creature without a backbone before, and my ego like awakened or something or my true spirit awakened because nowadays I'm not really like that anymore at all. It was this struggle that overcame me. But the best I can really put in my earlier years is that I can only comprehend, even though I cannot comprehend. At the same time, I ultimately only can comprehend because I was bound to the path that I was going down. And I kind of believe in that a lot more lately, even though you think, why would there be so much destruction and havoc in the world if we were all pre-decided, composed out of the inevitabilities of life? Then why would there be havoc in the world? Well, maybe it's not so simple. There is destruction out there beyond our walls. I guess what I'm trying to say is, if our world isn't really as peaceful as it should be, then what is out there? I wonder. In the sky, beyond our planet. Other species that have lived, perhaps even that are watching over us. Because it would feel strange, wouldn't it, if we're just truly by ourselves? Wouldn't it feel so strange? It feels strange to me. I'm spinning in my chair. Anyways, let's see. I read up on, it's interesting. I was thinking about, because I kind of have been hating war. The concept of war frightens me and frustrates me all at once. I have been really having a problem with it, and I decided to have an open mind and to just read up on Russian Wikipedia, in particular Putin's term. And I did a good bit of reading on that. There was one moment in particular that stuck out to me, the sort of situation where there was a crisis within Russia, a ring of terrorism where a bunch of innocent lives were lost. I think it was 120 innocent lives as they gassed a theater that the terrorists were holed up and innocent civilian lives were lost. And it really made me think about what it means to be the civilian in that situation and to just be in the wrong place at the wrong time and then to die and to be forgotten. Maybe our biggest fear is to be forgotten. Maybe that's why a lot of us, we seek a legacy. We seek some kind of appreciation for ourselves. It can be like from ourselves, but really the point is that you don't just disappear at the end of the day. You still are. You still are remembered, and eventually everything fades out in time for the most part. But it really is a tragedy how easily dead is forgotten. But really, it's how could it be any other way? When every single person focuses on what they're doing and what they're thinking of. Why pay mind to some civilian who was killed when you weren't? So that's kind of the greed of our lives. It's the selfishness of our lives, really. And I think, I read more than that. I read most of, I'd say at least. I just don't have a great memory. I'm hoping that in the future my memory rejuvenates and I have hopes, but it's been a while I've been hoping for that. But I tried. I tried to understand, in particular, what created the conflict that is currently ongoing. But I wanted to read up on the background before getting to that. I saw that Putin was a genuinely like to love leader. And so at some point it seems that things took a turn for him. And I was beyond his second term, maybe, or maybe the third, but I think I read the second. Beyond the second term, things took a turn for him. Sensing a Justin Trudeau here. Justin Trudeau situation. But it seems that the mark can really lay itself upon any of us. It seems the mark of evil really can lay itself upon any of us. Yeah, that's how I see it. And maybe that guy was bit or something in his sleep. Who knows, right? Because if you go from being an amazing man or a great man, at the very least, someone who is loved and idolized, and who has some sort of moral code, to being to being what's the word, immoral. What does that mean? Well, if you would space that out, that's just my conspiracy theory speaking, but if you space out the amount of damage throughout time so that it creates a natural regression, then it makes sense to people. But if it all happens in a day, it doesn't really make sense to people. So that would be like a strategic element. I suspect that we're all being affected by outside forces, right? So, but really, you gotta ask yourself. I think, what does it really mean? Oh, sorry, I'll stop spinning. What does it really mean to degrade? Beyond the obvious. But even then, even old age, you'd think you'd stay on top of your maturity and your sentience and your dignity and so on. and you'd stay that way as a person. Personally, I have changed, but I don't feel I have degraded. If anything, I feel I have invigorated. I have invigorated, I have grown. But to go from being a source of kindness to some sort of totalitarian, well, you give it a few months, a few years, and especially a few years, it's much more normalized than it should be. You know, Kanye West, for example, he went from being a very humbly spoken figure for the most part, although he always had kind of grandiose moments, but you could tell he was more in touch with himself in many ways than he is nowadays. Everyone is changing. It's kind of scary how much people are changing. But I think we normalize the degradation in particular too much. I don't think we question it enough, even though questioning it would not lead to much, but I'm surprised it's not done more. You know, I'm not. I'm more than anything. I'm surprised it's not seen as some kind of fallacy to completely switch up unless you were completely switched up. And what I mean by that is, well, how I see the world, okay, is that, because I've made some claims on this channel, how I see the world is that we will always retain the same body, of course, but the personality component, I believe it can be drastically altered. And that is without the natural inclination of maturity, or that is without the trauma of an event, or so on. It would just be an unnatural, like to degrade so significantly is just an unnatural. It's an unnatural phenomenon. I'd see it as superstitious. I'd see it as almost sci-fi. You know, like um, unnatural is, to say the least, the word. But as long as that person then commits to their actions, then how could it not be accepted? You know, how could it not be accepted, man? Because what else can you do? You can question the moment. But if you cannot revert the situation to its past inclination, which we cannot, we can only accept our present. Sorry, we can only accept our present. Then what's the point of even contesting or fighting it? You eventually have to accept it. And you know, given one leader, one person, can have such a massive, large hold over an entire country or even the world, isn't that kind of scary? Isn't that kind of really a scary thing? That someone could drastically change that at all. That whatsoever it could happen. Because then, what good are the past promises? There's this kind of dilemma with authority, where when a new leader is in place, there's the same set of expecting a disappointment that happens. Like there's the same like moment, I'm sure, in so many places where people will be like, great, Obama won, or Trump won, or Biden won, or Trudeau won, or Harper won, whatever. And then they'll think to themselves, oh, well, now that they've won, we're bound to be disappointed, aren't we? And then we'll all laugh to ourselves. Well, it's such a cliche at this point that I'm really wondering how and why. You know? And I had this conversation with Brad. Let's bring it back to the start of the video. I had this conversation with Brad where I discussed what I thought the world meant with Thailand. I was very high. And one of the things I spoke of is how I thought that our backbone, the backbone to our organism, the watchful eye, I didn't understand beyond the morally driven hope and the fruitfulness. I didn't understand why everyone thought when you die you go to heaven. I just didn't get it. Because the thing is our planet, is it really an exemplary heaven? Unless the standards grew, how could we proclaim this to be the start of an eventual stay in a heaven? When the reality is the country that is doing one of the best countries out there, if not the best country out there, to me the best country out there probably would be Canada. I live in Canada. But you ask yourself, it is a great country to me because the people are polite and the wages are fair. And people aren't being killed on the street very much, right, at all. It barely happens. But three great things, pretty much amazing things. The murder thing, it's because the thing is the three could be improved upon. It's a good standard of quality, Canada. But the fact that it is some of the best the world has to offer, when it is a good standard of quality, when it is appropriate, I really wonder what that means. I really do fucking wonder. And, I guess more than anything, it's just a matter of time before we either rejuvenate as a world, or as a community at least, or we falter. But what I can say is, I feel like the businesses take advantage of Canada more than the US, for real. I've just been getting that feeling because there was a lot more of price parity. Like, price parity was a much bigger thing back in the day. Now everything is more expensive in Canada. People make on average it would be like fairly higher wages, but the minimum wage is doing much better in the US. But I don't know how much it really compensates. I have a feeling that while the struggling man is doing better in Canada, the average layman is not necessarily doing better in Canada compared to the US. But maybe this is the cost of having peace. I don't know. I guess it's just me noticing the very small things. I'm not even working. I notice the small things. notice that a product will go from being $1 to $1.50 in a year or 2 years or so. I notice that the prices are slowly but surely going up. I start to think, am I going crazy? This was priced lower last week. A base price, And all I really think is, thank God sales are implemented, because while they are a motivator to purchase a product, if there was no such thing as sales, why invent the motivator? So, I'm extremely elated that sales exist on products, because otherwise we would be paying so much more. I'm just surprised that sales exist in a way, because sales are a sign of goodwill. They're a sign of goodwill. They really are. From the capitalist economy, from the businesses, to us. But I guess it makes sense when you consider competition in a way. But really, the world could be so much more monopolized that there would be no such thing. This is why buying out another business is kind of seen as sacred, Anyways, with all that said, I'm gonna go. So, I love you. Thank you for watching me ramble about the world. I wish everyone the best, because the truth is, some people, even if you have access to this video, doesn't mean that you're not struggling. In fact, in a way, it could mean exactly that. I kind of am a channel that always started, like my previous channel, which I deleted, this channel, it started on the basis of mental health, before it then got into, here are my thoughts on things, by the way. At least the last one was that way, exactly that way, but yeah. Maybe this is more so of a open-minded, free-spirited discussion kind of outlook. And the only thing I want to say before I go is that I value love, and I value peace, and I value harmony. And I hope that, because there is a clear decline in violence, I'd say so. So I hope that in the future keeps on going, and that maybe we aren't so infatuated with ruining ourselves anymore. Goodbye.